The architectural history of Anatolia, modern-day Turkey, offers a profound narrative of cultural convergence. When the Seljuks began their steady expansion into territories previously dominated by the Byzantine Empire, they inherited not just land, but also a wealth of sophisticated Roman and Christian infrastructure. This inheritance led to an intriguing, highly pragmatic solution for building new monumental structures: the systematic incorporation of pre-existing materials. This practice, known technically as spolia, involved utilizing the ruins of churches, temples, and secular buildings not through destructive demolition, but through meticulous structural reuse. Rather than expending vast resources on quarrying and transporting new stone, early Islamic builders leveraged the high-quality masonry left behind, creating mosques that stand today as physical tapestries of history, weaving Byzantine and Islamic architectural traditions together in a seamless yet historically resonant whole. It is a testament to resourceful and practical state building in an era of transition. To fully appreciate this phenomenon, we must set the historical stage in the 11th and 12th centuries. Following pivotal battles, particularly Manzikert in 1071, Byzantine authority fractured, leaving many regional centers and religious complexes depopulated or vulnerable. The Seljuks, establishing the Sultanate of Rum, prioritized rapid consolidation and the immediate establishment of visible symbols of their new governance. The construction of a central mosque, the Ulu Jami, was paramount in any newly acquired city. Faced with the urgent need for large, durable structures, utilizing available, cut and prepared stone became an economic imperative. This wasn't necessarily an act of religious subjugation inscribed in stone, but often one of architectural convenience and logistical efficiency. The sheer weight and quality of Byzantine construction materials made them ideal candidates for reuse, far superior to locally sourced, unworked stone in many areas. This pragmatic approach defined the initial architectural language of Islamic Anatolia. The term spolia itself derives from Latin, initially referring to the spoils of war, but in architecture, it denotes the reuse of previous building elements in a new construction. Crucially, in Anatolia, this reuse often happened without requiring the prior structure to be deliberately destroyed by the new occupants. Instead, materials were sourced from already ruined, abandoned, or collapsed Byzantine structures. The Great Mosque of Diyarbakir, originally dating back to the 11th century, provides one of the clearest examples. Its sprawling courtyard facade is adorned with columns and capitals that bear distinct Roman and Byzantine hallmarks, including inscriptions and sculpted motifs. These pieces were carefully extracted from nearby existing structures, such as the ancient Church of St. Thomas or the city's Roman walls, and then structurally integrated into the mosque's hypostyle hall. This demonstrates an almost surgical precision in the recycling process, preserving the material's integrity while giving it an entirely new function within an Islamic sacred space. At Diyarbakir, the use of spolia transcended mere functionality. It became a declaration. The complex features two main courtyards, and within the prayer hall, dozens of ancient columns stand aligned, defining the space. The builders did not attempt to hide the origins of these materials. In fact, in some instances, Christian symbols or ancient Greek inscriptions were simply turned inwards or subtly defaced, but the underlying structure, the column itself, remained untouched, proving its durability. The key adaptation required was not structural replacement, but orientation. Since the new building was a mosque, its axis, the Qibla, had to point towards Mecca. The existing Byzantine foundations and columns were incorporated into a layout that respected this religious requirement, sometimes resulting in slightly unusual or irregular internal column alignments, a subtle clue to their repurposed nature. This architectural negotiation underscores the careful balance struck between history, engineering, and religious necessity. The integration of spolia fundamentally influenced the interior atmosphere and structural design of the hypostyle mosques. Early Byzantine churches often featured dome structures and concentrated loading points, whereas the early Seljuk mosques employed the hypostyle plan, a sprawling hall supported by many closely spaced columns, necessary for managing large congregations. The abundance of readily available, robust columns from ruined sites perfectly suited this architectural typology. Furthermore, the massive marble and granite columns inherited from older structures provided superior structural integrity compared to what contemporary Seljuk workshops might have produced rapidly. This reliance on inherited strength meant that the new structures could achieve greater height and scale quickly. Builders meticulously selected columns of similar height and diameter, sometimes adding small plinths or abaci to equalize height differences, ensuring a harmonious, albeit layered, appearance. This transformation speaks volumes about the early Islamic period's adaptive engineering genius. Beyond structural necessity, the economic and logistical advantages of using spolia were undeniable. Constructing monumental buildings required immense resources, manpower, time, and raw materials. By utilizing existing shaped stone, builders could cut down construction time significantly, allowing the new Islamic administration to establish legitimacy and civic function much faster. Transporting large stones over rough terrain was prohibitively expensive. Proximity to a derelict site meant instant access to a virtual quarry. This practice was deeply pragmatic, demonstrating an impressive form of early sustainable architecture. The speed of construction often trumped the aesthetic desire for entirely uniform, newly commissioned designs. Historians argue that in the context of medieval state building, the efficiency gained through spolia was a critical factor in the successful and rapid transformation of the Anatolian urban landscape, turning former Byzantine centers into thriving Seljuk capitals almost overnight. The religious interpretation of spolia is complex, oscillating between declarations of triumph and acts of integration. While some scholars view the prominent display of pre-Islamic materials as a subtle demonstration of conquest, a literal taking of the previous civilization's power and incorporating it into the new one, others emphasize the continuity of sacred space. Building a mosque on the site of, or utilizing materials from, a former religious structure often validated the site's enduring sanctity within the local populace's historical memory, easing the transition for converting or coexisting populations. Moreover, the focus of Islamic art is aniconic. The reuse of figural Christian or pagan sculpture, once neutralized or repurposed, was less controversial than it might seem today. The core message lay not in the individual fragments, but in the final, unified structure, a functional, beautiful mosque, reflecting the power and permanence of the new order through material endurance. Beyond Diyarbakir, numerous ulu jamis, great mosques, across Anatolia bear witness to this history. The Ulu Jami in Sivas, for example, built in 1196, incorporates a large number of ancient capitals and column shafts, giving its hypostyle hall an uneven yet historically rich appearance. Similarly, the Great Mosque of Malacha, despite later renovations, retains significant evidence of repurposed Byzantine masonry. The builders often treated the older components with respect, understanding their high-quality craftsmanship. They used them as foundation elements or supports for the entrance portals, areas requiring the greatest structural resilience. The consistency across different regions suggests that this wasn't an isolated local practice, but a standardized architectural principle across the Seljuk Sultanate of Rum. It was an acknowledgement that the finest building materials were already standing, waiting to be rediscovered and reintegrated into the emerging architectural landscape. One critical factor underlying the extensive use of spolia was the unparalleled quality of Roman and Byzantine engineering. The enduring hardness of their quarried marbles and granites, combined with precise cutting techniques, meant that even ruins provided superior material compared to locally produced alternatives. When a Seljuk builder selected a column from a ruined church, they were choosing material that had already withstood centuries of natural stress. This high tensile strength was particularly vital for structures built in seismically active zones, such as much of central and eastern Anatolia. By leaning on the structural achievements of the past, the new Islamic structures gained exceptional longevity. The legacy of Byzantine skilled labor, even if often indirect, was thus preserved in the very bones of the new Islamic architecture, ensuring that the mosques themselves would endure for the coming centuries. As the Ottoman Empire succeeded the Seljuks, the practice of spolia continued, though it gradually shifted in emphasis. While early Ottoman mosques often still utilized spolia and foundation work or secondary structures, the sheer economic power and centralized administration of the later empire allowed for massive, fully bespoke construction projects utilizing standardized new materials. Architects like Mimar Sinan favored a unified aesthetic, often moving away from the visible juxtaposition of historical elements seen in the Seljuk period. However, the tradition never fully vanished. Even in later periods, incorporating a prized ancient capital or a rare slab of porphyry provided prestige and a connection to the deep historical roots of the land. Thus, the early Seljuk practice set a precedent, a recognition that the history of Anatolia was a continuous, layered narrative, and architecture was the means of physically inscribing that complexity onto the urban fabric, even when the aesthetic priorities changed. Today, these mosques built from repurposed ruins serve as invaluable historical documents. They challenge simplistic narratives of absolute conquest and replacement, presenting instead a layered reality of architectural and cultural adaptation. Studying the spolia used in these structures allows historians to trace the origins of the materials, identifying specific Roman temples, Byzantine churches, or city fortifications that contributed their strength to the new structures. They highlight an era when pragmatism guided religious architecture, resulting in buildings that are structurally Islamic but materially universal. Furthermore, modern conservation efforts are focused not just on the preservation of the mosque as a whole, but on identifying and protecting the individual fragments of spolia, ensuring that the stories embedded within these reused stones continue to inform our understanding of Anatolia's unique history of interfaith interaction and coexistence. The early Islamic mosques of Anatolia are remarkable examples of architectural resourcefulness, where the materials of one civilization were carefully woven into the fabric of the next. They stand not as monuments to absolute erasure, but as enduring evidence of historical continuity, economic necessity, and profound structural innovation. These buildings remind us that history is often less about clean breaks and more about strategic recycling and adaptation, making the ancient stones speak the language of a new era. The complexity held within the walls of structures like the Diyarbakir Great Mosque challenges us to look closer at the built environment and appreciate the multi-layered heritage of this crucial crossroads region. Thank you for exploring this fascinating historical practice with us. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more updates on history, architecture, and cultural exchange.